Greetings, Grand Lakers. Rusty Fleming. I'm the publisher of Grand Lake News Online, and it's a pleasure to be with you again. And joining us today is Dr. Bruce Howell. And Dr. Howell recently was celebrated, you might say, on the Voices of Oklahoma with respect to the big birthday celebration that's coming up for the Pensacola Dam next weekend. 75th anniversary, lots of activities planned. But Bruce, tell us about your gig with John Erling on the Voices of Oklahoma.
Well, it was interesting. We kind of went through the history, why they called it Pensacola, and of course the Holman, Holway, his background and his relationship with his wife, school teacher. She was 7 years older than he was, and they ended up in Tulsa, and he, of course, built a dam at Spavinaw, and that gave him some legitimacy, I guess, with the new GRDA board.
And the legend was that he had him float his last paycheck down the water line from Spavinaw to Tulsa, which later we find out was a fraud.
The 60-mile trip turned out to be the last
mile or so, right? Yeah, but anyway.
And he dramatically waded into the lake, Yehola, and picked up his big check, his final check.
Dr. Howell is probably the driving force behind the history preservation around the Grand Lake area. And when this building, the Eco building that GRDA occupies, was being planned and built, well, he held out for some historical space, we might say, and a visitor center concept. He got into writing the script for the various video presentations that are here at the dam for people that tour the dam to get the history. And you might tell us a little bit about that, please.
But back to the Pensacola picture, we thought it was necessary to inculcate newcomers, visitors, to the history of the dam, and what better way than to develop a DVD, which we did, and that plays regularly here in the building. And of course, then I got interested in just writing articles. There's so much history, interesting history, and interesting characters.
A bunch of them, really interesting characters.
Yeah, and I want to relate to a few regarding the Pensacola project in a minute, but in the process I ended up writing 175 articles about northeast Oklahoma, and characters ranging from Bonnie and Clyde to James Wilkinson, who was the first guy to come down the river and parlay with the Indian chief Kashigar back in 1806.
There is a lot of history, Bruce, and for those of you that don't know, Dr. Howell is a retired superintendent of public schools in Tulsa, and certainly has an interest in education. And part of the driving and motivating thing behind this for you, Bruce, as I recall, was the fact that this would be a teaching tool that we could put into the various schools around the area to teach the history that we have that's so rich here.
That's right. We ended up with 4 DVDs. And of course these articles, which were combined into 2 books that our organization, our little group, published and distributed. Some were purchased, some we just gave away to schools and different entities.
And we have to point out that you had a hand in getting the Grand Lake, the Crown Jewel, published by the South Grand Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Howell was in contact with Mickey Weeks, who was the widow of Jim Weeks, who set out to write a book chronicling all the history about Grand Lake, and that book was published a couple of years ago, and I think we had 1,800 of them, and they're all but sold now, and has been a great project for the chamber. And you know, it's was produced in a coffee table type of book that, and every Grand Laker you would think might want to have one of those on their coffee table.
Well, many do.
And many do, you're right, absolutely. It's been a very successful project, and you know, it's such an amazing story about how this thing came to be, and we don't have time to chronicle all those things, but you had a couple you wanted to talk about.
Well, I was going to mention a few of the, what I call characters that.
Colorful characters.
Colorful characters. Of course, most anyone that knows any of the history of Grand Lake knows about Henry Holderman and his longtime efforts to get a dam built here, even as a young man of 18, and finally it materialized in 1940, and he lived to see it for the next 11 years. He's buried up in the Wyandotte Cemetery. But Henry, in addition to all of the other adventures he had, he also was with a posse when Ike Gilstrap was shot and killed by the Wycliffe brothers. I mean, he was, here's a guy that was in Africa. He left when he was about 16, went to Africa and led safaris, and he went to India and he helped build mud dams. And
Well, it wouldn't be an ordinary guy that had a vision about Grand Lake.
well, absolutely. And then I've jotted down a few others here. There's a guy by the name of Howard Langley, who the town of Langley is named after. But Howard has an interesting byline too. He is a shirt-tail relative of George Washington, and
Really?
also George Guest, who is known by most people as Sequoia.
Right.
So he has quite a background, you know, for a McDonald County boy, who also went on to serve on the state Supreme Court, and it's a melding of a lot of different guys. I jotted down, of course, C.D. Armstrong, and who founded Disney, bought the land over there, called it an island because the water exits on both sides from Grand Lake.
Sort of surrounded.
Disney, it's kind of, I mean, he envisioned a community of 650,000. And he had all kinds of plans and plots. For example, in 1940, on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, he had what was called the Disney Tree Fight. And the Disney Tree Fight involved a local 250-pound guy in a tree who, anybody who could knock him out of the tree would get a prize. I mean, it was just all kinds of odd.
I thought you were going to bring up the Lady Godiva ride.
Well, there's that. but I suspect that, of course, there was Leon Red Phillips,
The Gov.
the governor. You know, he had been a 296-pound lineman for the University of Oklahoma, and he got his law degree, and he got in politics, and he was a wheeler dealer of all sorts, and he viewed the lake as a cash cow and when the bridges and roads were being inundated, he demanded from the government $800,000. That was his price for destroying the state roads and so forth. So he sued the government. And long story short, after he died, the government actually paid up in 1945.
Really?
They wrote a check for $800,000. So the legacy of Red Phillips was not all a bad thing, I suppose.
Well, I'd always heard that he held the road top hostage
Yeah.
and wouldn't allow it to be opened because he was trying to collect the money for the bridges that would have to be replaced due to the inundation of the lake. And well, that's an interesting thing too. Let's talk a little bit about the celebration this coming weekend, okay? And on Friday night, the Grand River Dam Authority is going to host a birthday bash right here in the Eco Building. It'll be from 7 to 8:30. They're going to serve actual birthday cake, I think in the form of cupcakes, but in any event, and ice cream. And there'll be a lot of historic memorabilia on display here from some of the various families. There will be representatives from the Holderman family and the Holloway family. There'll be a representative here from Massman Construction that did the concrete pour and the construction of the dam. So Dan Sullivan, I'm sure, will have several comments to make. So that's going to be a really good opportunity for you history buffs to get up to speed on construction of the dam, and then the next day, let me back up, and then after that, there will be a movie down in the park, down by the golf course on the driving range. It'll be an outdoor setup for a movie, and so if anybody looking for something to do that night can go down there and do that. And then the following day, there's going to be a huge raft up over here at the Disney park. There'll be a stage brought into the park almost on the beach. There'll be 6 different bands that will be playing throughout the afternoon from like 12 to 5. And before the music gets started, there will be a boat parade in front of the Pensacola Dam. So shaping up to be a really fun 2-day celebration, and there'll be vendors set up in the park, and there's rumors of a car show breaking out, and so it should be a great time to celebrate 75 years of Grand Lake being the, as we like to say, the golden goose of northeastern Oklahoma.
Or the jewel.
Or the jewel, as the case may be. And the history is here. Bruce Howell has really documented all of it for those of you that are interested in 2 books now. And Bruce, how do they get the books?
Well, they're in publication right now. Amazon.com
Okay.
is publishing. They can go online and get them. Of course, we'll have distribution points around the community here
Okay.
after they're out.
So can they get them here at the chamber office, or at least get access to them?
If you and I can cut a deal, they certainly
Okay, that sounds good. All right, Grand Lakers, enjoy that 75th birthday party, and this has been, let's call it a lakeside chat since it's right behind us, Bruce. And enjoy the birthday party. We'll see you next time.